Okay, this unit is going to be talking about how we classify animals and plants. Okay, so we are on Learning Target 31. You should be able to identify and describe the different characteristics of animals. Okay, so when we start classifying living things, we use a level classification, and pretty much the kingdom is the largest classification. Right now there is some debate, but we have about 5 kingdoms. We have animals, plants, bacteria, which has been broken down into 2 kingdoms, the eubacteria and the archaebacteria, fungi, and protists. We're going to specifically look at the kingdom of animals and plants. And so if you were to take animals, the kingdom Amelia, or animals, then it gets broken down into phylum. You guys will be doing a project where you're going to be looking at phylums of animals. Examples of phylums for animals are Porifera, which is sponges, Cnidarians, which are jellyfishes, echinoderms, which are things like sea stars, sea cucumbers. Then, of course, you've got your reptiles, your birds, your fish. Those are all phylums under the kingdom animal. And then you get it broken down even further, from class to order to family to genus, and then the most specific way of classifying living things is by species. So we want to make sure you draw that diagram in there. And the dichotomous key comes up next. Okay, the next thing I want you guys to realize is that a lot of times scientists use dichotomous key to help classify living things. And so what I've done is I've given you 2 examples. This is a tree map of a dichotomous key. So pretty much you come up with, if you've got a grouping of living things that you want to classify and they have similar characteristics, you would break those characteristics down and you would create a map for that. So this is a tree map. So if you were looking at living things, you would that had shells versus no shells. Then you break down the shells into single and double, no shells, no backbone, with backbone, and so forth. And that's one of the ways that we use to classify living things. We use a dichotomous key. Tree map is one example. Another example is over here. Okay, this one they did with candy. So if the candy is chewy, it says go to number 2. So you would go down here to number 2. Is the candy wrapped? Go to 3. If the candy's not wrapped, then you've got gummy worms, because gummy worms are not wrapped and they're chewy. If it's wrapped, you go to 3. If it's round, you go to 4. Not round, 5. 4, if it's all white, you've got some taffy. If it's not round, you're going to go 5. If wrapper's not right, and so forth. So they came up with these characteristics to classify a grouping of candies, which included gummy worms, taffy, it's like roll-ups, or Tootsie Rolls, sorry, some chocolate, and I think that Star Explode, I don't know which one that one is. But that's an example of a dichotomous key to help classify living things. Okay, so now let's take a look at characteristics of animals that we use when we classify. And I'm sure you've heard these first 3 terms before: a herbivore, carnivore, and omnivore. A herbivore eats only plants, carnivore eats only other animals, and an omnivore eats both plants and animals. Then we can take a look at animals and look at their adaptations. Okay, we talked about adaptations. Remember, adaptations are variations that help a living thing survive in their environment. So physical adaptation is something that you see. It's something that's noticeable. So camouflage, bioluminescent, the coral snake versus the scarlet snake. They have the same colors, but the coral snake is poisonous, the scarlet is not. That's called mimicry. Scarlet snake, so the scarlet snake has mimicry. It has the same colors as the poisonous coral snake, but they're not in the same order. If you look, this goes black, yellow, red for the coral snake. This goes, the scarlet snake, or for the coral snake, the scarlet snake is black, red, black, yellow, so they're a little bit different. Okay, so the scarlet snake has the same colors as the coral, but because it's not in the same order, that's how we kind of know that it's not poisonous. And because the red color is in between two black stripes, and the red here is between two yellow stripes over here. And the scarlet snake has mimicry because other living things won't eat the scarlet snake because they think it's a coral snake and they know it's poisonous. So those are examples of physical adaptations. Behavioral adaptations are behaviors that species perform to help them survive in the environment. So how fast a living thing is, whether the animals hunt in groups, whether the animals spray ink or have a chemical that they spray out like a skunk and a squid to escape their prey, swimming in schools of fish. Those are all things that animals do that's behavioral to help them survive. And when we start looking at classifying animals, we look at two big categories, whether they are vertebrates or invertebrates. So vertebrates are animals with backbones, or they have vertebrae. The phylums that have vertebrates are fish, birds, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. Invertebrates are animals without a backbone, or vertebrate. And 78% of all animals are invertebrates. So those are your sponges, your cnidarians, your echinoderms, your annelids, which are worms, your mollusks, which are like your snails and squid and octopus, nematodes, which are annelids are earthworms, nematodes are your flatworms and roundworms, and then your arthropods. And once we've classified animals as invertebrates or vertebrates, we look at to see how they survive in their environment based on temperature. And you have what's animals who are ectotherms. Okay, their body temperature is dependent on the environment. So whatever the temperature is outside, that's their body temperature. So lizards are ectotherms. Humans are endotherms, along with a lot of other animals. These are animals that maintain an internal body temperature, which does not change in outside temperature. So without, I forgot to put without. So we keep an internal body temperature of around 96, 97 degrees Fahrenheit. And whether it's warm or cold outside, our body does the best it can to keep that. Obviously, if the temperature's too extreme, too warm or too cold, we have to adjust for that. So all mammals are endotherms. Some other characteristics of animals are whether they have an exoskeleton or an endoskeleton. Exoskeletons are hard parts of the body are located on the outside. So like this lobster, for example, you've got hard parts located on the outside. We have an endoskeleton. These are hard parts of the body located on the inside. Okay. We also classify living things or animals by what type of symmetry they have. So there's three types: radial symmetry, bilateral symmetry, and asymmetrical. Radial symmetry means that body parts are arranged around a center. So if you take a look at this picture down below, okay, this is an example of an echinoderm. Okay, you've got a center part with body parts arranged around it. Starfish are like that. Bilateral, which is what humans are, is body is split in half. Both sides would be similar. Not perfectly similar, but just similar. So if you take this lobster and you split it in half, both sides look very similar. Asymmetrical means body parts have no symmetry. They're not radial, they're not bilateral. Sponges are asymmetrical. They have no symmetry whatsoever. Okay, so those are characteristics of animals, and now we're going to start getting into the different phylums of animals.